Hello. Good morning, everybody. Thank you for the kind introduction, madam. Girija madam has already elaborated in details about the conditions of maternal collapse. So let's continue. It's time for action. I would like you to take your mindset in a labor room. You are attending a labor patient and the patient collapses. You have got only 3 or 4 staffs with you and you are the lone consultant there. From here the action begins. What exactly you are supposed to do there? So let me start by this thing. Who is called as hero in our life? Whenever the situation demands, he virtually does everything. He will come out of water, he will fly over the plane, and he will come out of the blazing air to bring the heroine back. Now, when it comes to maternal collapse, you are alone in your labor room and you are attending that patient. You will be playing that superhero. You will have to intubate that patient, you will have to give CPR to that patient, you will have to ventilate that patient, you will have to give resuscitation fluids to that patient, and this will have to be done very fast. But you can't win this battle only with brains and heart. I have got the knowledge and I have got the courage. That is not going to suffice. You will need all the arms and ammunition. So what arms and ammunition? Before you are taking the patient to your labor ward, is your labor room fully loaded? Monitors should be there. Emergency drugs should be there. Intubation tray has to be there. So all these things are to be ready at hand, then only you will be able to resuscitate your patient. Otherwise, chances are less. So in a collapse scenario, what exactly you are dealing with? ये जो question है ना, ये मेरे को मेरे husband mode में लेके जाता है. And I always think what I am dealing with when my wife is angry, frustrated, dejected, sad. ये पूरे negative modes का answer एक ही है. Lack of attention syndrome. So, when it comes to maternal collapse, whenever you are dealing with maternal collapse, what exactly you are dealing with? Whether it is a neurological collapse, whether it is a respiratory collapse, whether it is a cardiovascular collapse. Exactly at that moment, you are dealing with lack of oxygen to the tissues. That is the first thing you will have to take care of. So for that, you will have, and secondly, you will have to act very fast because hypoxia is going to damage brain and heart. Here I would like to mention that resuscitation is needed not only to keep the patient alive, but you will have to see that you are preventing the irreversible damage to the brain and heart. And that is why the action has to come fast. Because hypoxia survival time for brain, as you can see, is less than 3 minutes. And the irreversible damage will start. Rest of the organs, they may continue to act for a longer time, but for brain and heart, you will have very little time. So this requires to understand and treat hypoxia. It becomes mandatory to revisit the physiology of oxygen. When I'm talking about hypoxia, it is not only desaturation. Hypoxia to the tissues can occur when your saturation levels are more than 90% if your BP is low. So you will have to see that why the hypoxia to the tissues is occurring. And for that I will take you back to the first MBBS level, physiology of oxygen. Now normal hemoglobin content of blood is around 15 grams, and each gram when fully saturated carries around 1.34 ml of oxygen. Now the total content, if you see in 100 ml of blood, it will be around 20 ml of oxygen. Now cardiac output per minute is around 5 liters. So that takes the oxygen delivery to the tissues. That means the heart is pumping around 1 liter of oxygen, which is to be carried to the tissues for utilization, which we label as oxygen flux. Now if you see the equation here of oxygen flux, it is hemoglobin, saturation, and cardiac output. These are in multiplication. HB is showing your hematological system. SpO2 is your respiratory system. And third is the cardiovascular system. So these are the 3 systems which are going to affect your oxygen flux to the tissues. So let's take an example of eclampsia. Now the patient is not going to die because of convulsions. Patient is going to die, if at all, it is because of the drop in saturation, because of the postictal hypoventilation, because of the pulmonary aspiration, because of the bronchospasm, which is going to produce hypoxia, and this hypoxia is going to reduce the oxygen flux, which is going to affect the morbidity and mortality of the patient. Secondly, if you consider all those conditions where there is hemorrhage or excessive blood loss, this is going to reduce two things. It will reduce the hemoglobin, which will reduce the oxygen carrying capacity, and it is going to reduce the oxygen flux. At the same time, it is going to reduce the blood volume, which is very essential in obstetric practice if you have to consider. It will reduce the cardiac output. So here, these two factors, although that patient might be having good saturation because she is breathing nicely, but the problem is with hemoglobin and cardiac output. So these two again will lead to hypoxia. That is why I am saying that hypoxia, you have to treat that. So let's come to the CPR. Now here, one quality of women is going to help you a lot. They are multitasking. And when it comes to giving CPR, when the patient collapses, this you can utilize to your maximum efficiency. Why I am saying this is that, suppose the patient collapses and you reach the patient, the first and foremost thing you have to see is pulse. If you are not able to palpate the pulse within 10 seconds, then you will have to start compressions of chest. Earlier it was ABC, airway, breathing, circulation. Now they say it has to be CAB. Start the compression immediately. While you are starting the compressions, at the same time you visually see whether the patient is breathing or not. Second aspect is you have to look after the breathing of the patient. So immediately you will have to go for the airway management. So while you are feeling the pulse, while you are seeing the respiration, you have to give commands to your staff. One staff, you go and call for help. Second staff, you go and take the trolley of the airway to me. And third staff, you connect the monitor, because unless you connect the monitor, you are not going to know what is the cardiac status of the patient. So these three things you will have to go do simultaneously. Once you start the compressions and apply the monitor, then only the role of defibrillator comes. If at all there is a shockable rhythm, only two rhythms are shockable, either ventricular tachycardia or ventricular fibrillation. In a asystole, giving shocks is not going to help at all. So that is the next level of management. If the patient rhythm is shockable, you will have to give the shocks. If it is not shockable, all you can do is continue CPR, continue ventilation. So let's come to the compressions. Start compressions within 10 seconds. That is the first thing. Frequency should be 100 to 120 per minute. Depth of the compression should be around 5 centimeters, this much. And compressions to breath ratio till the time you are intubated has to be 30:2. Once you intubate, you can dissociate both the things and you continue the compressions with 100 per minute and respiration with 8 to 10 per minute. Pulse check should be 5 to 10 seconds, not less than 5 seconds, not more than 10 seconds. Don't hope for कि 10 से 15 सेकंड या 20 सेकंड अपन कंटिन्यू करेंगे तो पल्स आ जाएगी. If it is not there, it is not there. You have to continue with compressions. This Girija madam has already told about lateral tilt or shifting of manual displacement of the uterus. Coming to the airway management. One thing is you can ventilate with mask. Second thing is intubation, and third is LMA. What I want to emphasize upon is whenever any patient becomes unconscious, the first thing, maybe his breathing efforts are there, but because of the collapse of the airway, because the tongue falls and opposes the posterior pharyngeal wall, airway patency is lost. So all you have to do is turn the head to one side, lift the chin, and if still it is obstructing the airway, then you will have to lift the jaw. Now these are the maneuvers which are very simple, but you will have to get the feel of it. How to ventilate the patient on mask, how to intubate. They are not very difficult procedures to do, but there is an apprehension because we have never tried it. So whenever you are in your routine OTs, observing your anesthetist, ask him to allow you to hold the mask. Get the feel how the mask is held, where the fingers are to be kept. Once you get that feel, you will be able to achieve that maneuver whenever panicky situation arises. The same thing is true about intubation. Try in routine OTs 3 or 4 times you go and intubate the patient. With in elective cases, you will learn what exactly is needed to intubate. Otherwise, they are not difficult. And third thing I would like to mention is always keep this thing in your labor room. Because if you are not able to intubate, at least this eye gel, you will be able to achieve airway patency very easily. It is very simple maneuver. It is YouTube videos are already given about how to put the eye gel in. So I won't show you the video. Now let's come to oxygen delivery. Here I would like to mention one thing. Because your patient is hypoxic and you are to give 100% oxygen, keep one bench circuit available in your labor room, because this can be directly connected to oxygen source, and it gives you assurance of 100% oxygen delivery. If you are ventilating with ambu bag, you are not going to give 100% oxygen to the patient. So if you can connect, and it is very easy to handle, one bench circuit connected directly to the oxygen cylinder, and you will be able to give 100% oxygen to the patient. Coming to the next thing is, if you can't find a regular superficial vein cannulation, superficial veins may collapse. You may get collapsed superficial veins. In that scenario, this is very essential maneuver. You can easily cannulate external jugular. Name jugular is a bit tricky, but otherwise it is just a superficial vein which can be easily cannulated. It is safe, easy, and very effective. Now coming to the drugs in CPR. Only 2 drugs I will like to mention. One is adrenaline, one is vasopressin. Adrenaline is not used in CPR for its cardiac stimulant action. It is used for its vasopressor effect. It causes severe peripheral vasoconstriction that increases the diastolic blood pressure during CPR, which increases the coronary perfusion, which improves the cardiac performance. So adrenaline, when you are using, use 1 mg every 3 to 5 minutes. Anything extra is not going to help improve the outcome. So adrenaline is one thing, and second thing is vasopressin, which is direct vasopressor. It will help again in increasing the perfusion to the vital organs. Dose is 40 units. Since the half-life of vasopressin is good, you can, even if you give single dose, that is sufficient. And these are the drugs you will be, it is important for you to keep in your labor rooms ready. Because if the patient needs defibrillation, and if patient is resistant to your shocks, or if the fibrillation is recurring, then these drugs are going to help you. One is amiodarone, second is lignocaine. One thing I would like to mention about atropine is, in asystole or slow idioventricular rhythm, your atropine is not going to give you tachycardia, because that asystole has happened because of cardiac hypoxia. Unless you correct the hypoxia, atropine is not going to work, because it is not the vasovagal which is causing the asystole, it is the cardiac hypoxia. Coming to the scenario, when you have resuscitated the patient has come out of cardiac arrest. Now you will have to look for the low BP. If the patient has got low BP, what is the end BP comes from? It is heart rate, stroke volume, and SVR, again in multiplication. So any drop in any parameters is going to reduce your BP. So whenever you are treating a hypotensive patient, only one parameter you can check, that is the heart rate. Stroke volume you cannot check, SVR you cannot check. So check the heart rate. Heart rate can be bradycardia or tachycardia. If it is bradycardia, correct the bradycardia and see whether the BP is coming up. That bradycardia can be corrected by atropine, which is vagolytic. If atropine is not working, then start giving dopamine or isoprenaline, and last one is pacing. Once the bradycardia is corrected, if the BP is not coming up, then you will have to look for the stroke volume and heart rate. If your heart rate is on the tachycardic side, there are only two causes. One thing, either there is decrease in the stroke volume or there is decrease in the SVR. Now, decrease in the stroke volume means heart is pumping less amount of blood with each stroke. It can be because of contractile dysfunction, it can be because of low blood volume. If low blood volume is there, naturally there is either a revealed or concealed hemorrhage, which can be corrected by replacement with fluids or blood. Contractile dysfunction, like peripartum cardiomyopathy or ischemic heart disease, you will require inotropic support. Here, one thing I would like to mention is whenever the contractile dysfunction is there, there will be back pressure and there will be pulmonary congestion. So, tachycardia, low BP, along with drop in saturation, you are looking towards contractile dysfunction. Whereas tachycardia, low BP, but SpO2 is good, then you are looking at the low blood volume, which has to be corrected. And lastly, low SVR you will get either in anaphylaxis or in inadvertent epidural puncture drugs. And this low SVR you will require vasopressor, especially noradrenaline and dopamine. Coming to the things to remember in massive blood loss. Since it is obstetric massive blood loss, you cannot neglect. I would like to mention one thing which is not mentioned till now is maximum allowable blood loss counter. If you have got an Android phone, it has got an application. You just have to enter the patient's weight and patient's hematocrit. You will be getting the maximum allowable blood loss. When I am saying maximum allowable blood loss, it means that this much of blood, even if the patient loses, you can replace with fluids. You don't require to push blood for that. Now, what I am trying to emphasize upon is, if your pre-op hemoglobin is 14, see the maximum allowable blood loss. It is around 1750 ml. And if your patient's hemoglobin is 10, your maximum allowable blood loss is only 500 ml. We always see in the textbook that in in these obstetric patients, 1 liter blood volume is increased. So 1 liter loss, it is not going to harm the patient, but it is not so. You will have to look for the hemoglobin, pre-op hemoglobin. If pre-op hemoglobin is 10, even 500 ml of blood loss, patient is going to develop tissue hypoxia. And next thing I would like to say is, whenever there is blood loss, you always remember that it takes away 3 things with it. One thing is blood volume, second thing is hemoglobin, and last thing is coagulation factors. So you will have to replace them or deal with them in that order. First and foremost thing is, you will have to correct the blood volume, because volume is needed for cardiac output, which is needed for oxygen flux. If blood is not available, replace with fluids, but replace the blood volume. Second, hemoglobin. And lastly, if patient is going for massive blood transfusion, patient is going for massive blood loss, then only the coagulation factors come into picture. Next thing about obstetric blood loss, I would like to mention about Lord Krishna. How he was able to save the catastrophe is because the rate of infusion and rate of loss were matching. That is most essential in obstetric, especially patients like placenta accreta or lower uterine segment fibroid. In those patients, the rate of loss is so high that within 5 minutes your patient will be collapsed. So at that moment, always remember that your rate of infusion has to be very fast. And why, how you are going to give these IV fluids fast? One thing is, you can use the pressure bags which you use for hysteroscopic or laparoscopic purposes. Second thing is, you can use just a 3-way cannula and 20 cc syringe. Take the, connect the cannula to the IV line and start aspirating and pushing the fluids. So this is about the massive transfusion and fast IV fluids. So this is all about the emergency management and how you are going to tackle with the collapse. Once you have managed the case and the storm is over, praise the Lord, relax, and enjoy a glass of beer. Thank you.